During World War II, Chinese sailor Poon Lim survives 133 days alone on a life raft after his ship is sunk. Battling sun, thirst, hunger, sharks, storms, and crushing isolation, he rations supplies, fishes, and endures ships that pass without stopping. Near collapse, he is finally rescued by Brazilian fishermen, a landmark story of human resilience against overwhelming odds. The Atlantic in 1942 was not blue, it was strategic. Beneath its rolling surface moved steel hunters, unseen and patient. Above it traveled convoys of merchant ships, slow, heavy, burdened with cargo that fed a world at war. The ocean was no longer a passage. It was a battlefield without front lines, without warning shots, without mercy. Every crossing was a gamble measured not in miles but in probabilities. Somewhere below, submarines drifted in silence, listening, waiting. Merchant vessels were not warships. They carried food, supplies, fuel, the bloodstream of nations. But to the enemy, that made them targets just the same. On one of those ships was a young Chinese steward named Poon Lim, not a soldier, not a strategist, not a man trained for combat. His duties were simple: serve meals, maintain order, keep routine intact for men who tried not to think about what might be beneath them. In the narrow corridors of the ship, life still followed schedules: breakfast, cleaning, small talk, human rituals performed on borrowed safety. But routine at sea during wartime was an illusion. The calm above water hid a different reality below. At night, blackout protocols swallowed the ship in darkness. No lights, no silhouettes against the horizon. Even a glimmer could mean detection. The crew moved like ghosts through their own vessel, voices lowered, footsteps careful. The ocean outside was vast, indifferent, unknowable. And always, the knowledge lingered. Somewhere out there, someone was hunting. Poon Lim did not command weapons. He did not study naval charts. His war was quieter, trays balanced in swaying corridors, cups that rattled with each shift of the hull, the effort to appear calm for others. Yet like every man aboard, he carried the same unspoken understanding. Survival depended on forces far beyond his control. The sea has a way of reducing everyone to the same level. Rank dissolves, nationality blurs. Steel and water decide. Days passed without incident. That, too, was part of the tension. Nothing happening did not mean nothing was coming. It meant only that the clock had not yet struck. Somewhere below the surface, unseen currents moved. Engines hummed in distant depths. Calculations were being made by men who had never seen the faces of those above them. History often turns not on intention, but on proximity. And on this crossing, the distance between hunter and prey was already close. Night erased the horizon. The ship moved as a shadow among shadows, engines vibrating through steel ribs, the ocean a black expanse without edge or mercy. Wartime protocol demanded darkness. No lights, no glow, no outline against the sky. The vessel was meant to be invisible, but invisibility at sea is a belief, not a guarantee. Below decks, the air was warm and close. Pipes hummed. Metal creaked with the slow flex of the hull against long Atlantic swells. Men tried to sleep in narrow bunks, boots within reach, life jackets never far away. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood. If something happened, it would happen fast. Too fast. Then it came. A violent jolt tore through the ship. Not a sound at first, but a force. Steel shuddered like an animal struck in the chest. A split second later, the explosion followed, a deep, crushing detonation that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lights died. Darkness collapsed inward. Shouting erupted in the corridors. The smell of oil and smoke pushed through ventilation shafts. Somewhere below, seawater rushed into compartments never meant to hold it. The ship had not been attacked in battle formation. There were no warning sirens, no chance to maneuver. A torpedo does not announce itself. It simply arrives. Poon Lim was thrown against metal. The floor tilted beneath him, not gradually but decisively. The angle of the world had changed. Training said, move up. Get clear. Don't think. Act. But panic is louder than instruction. Men collided in passageways, some half-dressed, some bleeding, all moving toward escape that might already be gone. Another blast, smaller, internal, something failing. The deck was chaos, the sparks shouting, the sea already climbing where it did not belong. Lifeboats struggled to deploy as the ship settled unevenly, pulled downward by water that weighed more than steel could resist. There is a moment when a ship stops being a ship and becomes a sinking object. This was that moment. The bow dipped. The stern rose slightly, then shuddered. Gravity no longer felt stable. Men jumped. Others fell. Oil spread across the surface in dark, shifting patterns. The Atlantic, cold and immense, waited below. Poon Lim reached open air just as the vessel gave a final groan, a deep, structural cry, and began its last descent. Within minutes, the massive structure that had felt permanent was only debris and bubbles in a black ocean. The war had found them. The ship was gone. One moment there had been steel beneath his feet. Structure, weight, direction. Now there was only water, black, endless, moving with a slow, indifferent rhythm that did not acknowledge what had just happened. Poon Lim surfaced into a world stripped down to its rawest elements: air, sea, darkness. The wreck had vanished with terrifying speed, pulled under by physics that do not pause for human survival. Around him, debris drifted, planks, fragments, the faint sheen of oil spreading like a wound across the surface. Voices had been there seconds ago. Shouts, cries, now only the slap of waves against floating wreckage. He turned in the water, scanning. Nothing that looked like rescue. Nothing that looked like land, nothing that looked like certainty. Then he saw it, a shape rising and falling with the swell. A life raft partially concealed by shadow and distance, tether lines trailing like veins. He swam with the desperate efficiency of someone who knows hesitation costs strength. Cold crept into his limbs. Clothes dragged. Each wave felt heavier than the last. Reaching the raft was not rescue, it was opportunity. He pulled himself up with trembling arms, chest scraping against rubberized surface, slick with seawater. For a moment he simply lay there, breathing hard, the raft rocking beneath him like an unstable thought. The Atlantic stretched in all directions, an unbroken horizon swallowed by night. No lights, no silhouettes. No sound of engines coming to help. The world had narrowed to a floating platform no larger than a small room, surrounded by an environment that did not negotiate. He listened. No more voices. That silence carried weight. It pressed inward. Survival at sea is not only a physical condition, it is an awareness of scale. The ocean does not feel large until you are small within it. And now he was very small. The raft rose and fell with each swell, a fragile island of air and fabric in a system built on depth and pressure. Beneath him lay miles of water, currents moving with ancient momentum. Above, a sky without landmarks. Rescue, if it existed, did not know where to look. The ship's last position would already be uncertain. The sea erases quickly. Poon Lim sat upright, turning slowly, scanning the darkness one more time. He was not waiting for help anymore. He was measuring reality. There are disasters that happen in seconds, and there are disasters that begin when the noise stops. Morning did not bring rescue. It brought visibility. The sun rose without hesitation, revealing the scale of his isolation with clinical clarity. No ships on the horizon, no smoke trails, no aircraft cutting across the sky. Just a blue expanse so wide it felt like a decision already made. The raft had survived the night. So had he. That alone was something, but survival at sea is not secured by endurance. It is governed by resources, and resources are counted, not hoped for. Poon Lim began to search the raft properly. There, secured within reach, was a small emergency supply container. Metal, sealed, deliberate. Not random debris. Not luck. Design. Someone, somewhere, had planned for this possibility. Inside it was not comfort, but time. He opened it carefully as if noise itself might waste energy. Water, hardtack biscuits, lime juice, basic tools. The sight of it stirred something dangerous. Relief. Measured against the endless ocean, the supplies looked insignificant, but measured against nothing, they were everything. Water especially, the line between survival and collapse at sea. He held the container a moment longer than necessary, feeling its weight, understanding what it represented. Days, maybe weeks. But not forever. He organized the contents methodically, not because order changed the ocean, but because order stabilized the mind. Rationing began immediately. No celebration, no indulgence, just calculation. A sip, not a drink. A portion, not a meal. Every decision from this moment forward would be arithmetic. The sun climbed higher. Heat intensified. Salt dried on his skin, tightening, pulling. The raft radiated warmth. Thirst did not wait politely. It pressed, persistent, and immediate. But discipline now meant survival, later. The hardest part of rationing is not the math. It's the waiting. He looked again at the supplies. They did not feel like abundance anymore. They felt like a clock, silent, invisible, already ticking. Each use shortened the timeline. Each day alive brought him closer to the moment when the container would be empty. Hope had arrived, but it had a limit. Out here, optimism without strategy is just a faster way to die. So he chose structure over fear, routine over panic. Check supplies. Protect them from sun and spray. Conserve strength. Watch the sky for rain. Watch the horizon for movement. Survival was no longer about being found. It was about lasting long enough that being found was still possible. By the third day, the sun stopped feeling like light. It felt like pressure. There is no shade in open water, no tree line, no wall to lean against. The sky above Poon Lim was vast, clean, merciless, a white glare that flattened depth and erased distance. Hours stretched without landmarks. The raft became a shallow bowl of heat, trapping warmth that had nowhere to go. His skin burned first. Then it cracked. Salt water dried in thin crystals along his arms, neck, and face. Each movement reopened tender patches. Sweat could not cool him. It only salted the wounds further. Lips split. Tongue thickened. Even breathing felt dry. The supplies in the container remained where he had placed them, untouched except for careful rationing. Water still existed, but thirst does not obey logic. The body asks in the present. Rationing answers in the future. Between the two lies suffering. Then came the waiting. Clouds gathered once, dark shapes promising relief. He watched them like a starving man watches food just out of reach. But the wind shifted. The clouds thinned. The sky cleared again, blue and empty, as if the idea of rain had been a misunderstanding. The ocean below seemed calm. That was its cruelty. Shadows began to appear beneath the raft, long, slow movements just beyond clear visibility. Sharks do not thrash. They do not announce. They circle with patience older than human fear. Poon Lim could not hear them, but he could feel their presence in the stillness, in the sense of being observed from below. He pulled his limbs closer into the raft. The water that could sustain him also contained what could end him in seconds. There would be no warning if he slipped, no negotiation. Nature doesn't hate. It does not need to. Days layered onto each other without change. Sun, heat, salt, thirst. The rhythm of waves tapping against the raft like a slow clock. Sleep came in fragments, shallow and alert. Every shift of the raft a reminder that stability was temporary. His world had reduced to two forces. Above, burning sky. Below, living depth. Between them, a thin membrane of fabric and air. The ocean did not need to storm or strike. It only had to maintain conditions. The human body, left exposed long enough, will surrender on its own. And already, weakness had begun its quiet work. Hunger changes the way a person sees the world. It narrows thought, sharpens focus, removes everything unnecessary. The hardtack ration was shrinking, water was measured, time was moving forward whether he wanted it to or not. Survival could no longer rely only on what had been packed for emergencies. The ocean that threatened him would also have to feed him. That was the new equation. Poon Lim began studying the water the way a hunter studies land. Movement patterns, reflections, the behavior of birds overhead. Life at sea reveals itself in signals, not guarantees. A ripple, a flicker of silver, a shadow that moves against the rhythm of the waves. He used what he had, improvised tools, fragments, patience. Fishing is not just technique, it is endurance. Long stretches of stillness, conserving energy while watching for the smallest opportunity. Hope returned quietly. That was its danger. It began as a shape at the edge of vision, a vertical line where only horizon should exist. At first he thought it was imagination, another trick of heat and exhaustion. But the line remained, grew, a structure against the sky, a ship. Poon Lim forced himself upright, heart beating with a strength he had not felt in days. Muscles protested. Vision narrowed, but adrenaline can borrow energy the body does not truly have. He searched for anything that could signal movement, reflection, contrast against blue. He waved. He stood as tall as the raft allowed. He made himself visible in a world designed to swallow small things. The vessel moved steadily across the horizon, large enough now to see its outline, its mast, its slow authority against the sea. Distance at ocean scale is deceptive. Something can look close enough to touch and still be unreachable. He waited for the turn. Ships searching change direction. They hesitate. They respond. This one did not. It continued on its line, indifferent, unaware, or unable to notice the smallest life in the largest environment on Earth. Its wake stretched behind it like a signature of power. Then it grew smaller. Then it became a shape again. Then a line. Then nothing. The emotional collapse came after the visual one. Hope had lifted him. The fall was harder than the days of emptiness before it. When survival is only struggle, the mind adapts. But when rescue seems possible and fails, the mind must start over from deeper ground. And it happened again. Another distant silhouette on another day, another surge of belief, another sequence of signaling, waiting, calculating distance against time. And again, no response. Whether the ships did not see him or could not risk stopping in hostile waters, the result was the same. He remained unseen. Isolation changed shape after that. It was no longer just physical separation. It was invisibility, the realization that the world could pass within sight and still not know he existed. Hope, once a resource, became something to manage carefully. Too much of it drained strength when it failed. Too little of it made survival meaningless. He had to ration belief the way he rationed water. The ocean did not grow louder. It grew quieter. And in that silence he understood something brutal. Rescue was not coming because he needed it. It would come only. Days no longer announced themselves with meaning, only with light and dark, heat and cold, hunger and brief relief. Poon Lim's body had thinned into angles and shadows, ribs pressing against skin that no longer healed the way it should. Strength came in small waves, then receded just as quickly. Movement had to be chosen carefully now. Even sitting upright required intention. Muscles that once responded automatically now negotiated. Hands trembled after simple tasks. The raft felt smaller, as if the world had been tightening around him. Then came the storm. The sky changed first, a shift in color, a heaviness in the air. Wind moved differently across the water, flattening one direction, lifting another. He had learned to read signals. This one carried force. Rain did not fall gently. It struck. Waves rose with sudden height, no longer rolling but colliding. The raft climbed, dropped, twisted. Every second required balance. One wrong shift of weight could turn survival into submersion. He tied himself to the raft. There was no heroism in the decision, only physics. If he fell, he would not have the strength to climb back. The storm did not rage in sound alone. It existed in motion, in instability, in the constant threat of inversion. Water collected. He drank what he could. Even danger offered opportunity. But exhaustion blurred judgment. Sleep became impossible. The body wanted to shut down, the environment refused permission. When the storm passed, it left quiet behind, but not peace. His reserves were lower, hands slower, thoughts heavier. Hallucinations began like small mistakes. A shape that wasn't there. A sound without source. Memory blending into present moment. He spoke once, thinking someone had called him. Only wind answered. The mind, like the body, can dehydrate. Reality narrowed to tasks. Check supplies, adjust position. Watch the sky, watch the water. But meaning thinned. Why survive another day? Because he had survived this one. The logic looped back on itself. Near collapse is not dramatic. It is gradual surrender. And yet, he did not let go. Even when strength faded, routine remained. Even when thoughts blurred, action continued. Survival had shifted from effort to reflex, a system running on the last available fuel. The ocean had not defeated him, but it had brought him closer to all the others, light spreading slowly across the Atlantic, the raft rising and falling with mechanical rhythm. Nothing in the sky suggested change. Nothing in the water promised rescue. But survival often ends the way it begins, without warning. Poon Lim lay still, conserving strength, his movements now measured in fragments. The ocean felt quieter, as if the system had paused. Then a sound broke the pattern. Faint at first, irregular, different from wind or wave. A motor. He forced himself upright. Muscles responded slowly, as if receiving instructions through distance. The sound grew clearer, not large engines, but smaller, uneven. Human scale. Human presence. Through the glare, a shape appeared. Low in the water, moving deliberately, not a warship, not a distant silhouette beyond reach. A fishing boat. He tried to signal, but his arms felt like borrowed tools. He raised them anyway. A small motion in a vast environment. The boat continued forward. For a moment it seemed it might pass just as others had. Then it slowed. Figures shifted along the edge of the vessel, pointing, adjusting course. The distance between them began to close, not drifting by chance, but moving with intention. After months of indifference, the world was finally reacting to his existence. The boat came alongside cautiously. The men aboard did not see a castaway first. They saw a shape, thin, sun-darkened, almost indistinguishable from the raft itself. Only when they drew near did the truth resolve. A man, alive where life should not have been possible. They helped him aboard with care, not because he resisted, but because he had little strength left to assist himself. His body weighed less than it should. His skin told the story before he spoke a word. Burns, salt sores, sharp bone beneath stretched flesh. The ocean receded behind them, still vast, still indifferent. But now there were voices, human ones. The sound of wood beneath his back. Shade. After 133 days he had crossed back into the world of the living, yet survival had not ended the struggle. It had only ended the ocean's part in it. Rescue is not an ending. It is a crossing. When Poon Lim was brought ashore, the ground felt unfamiliar, solid, unmoving, almost unreal after months on a shifting surface. The human world had edges again, buildings, voices, shade that did not drift away. Yet his body still moved as if the ocean were beneath him, balance adjusting to waves that no longer existed. He had survived 133 days at sea, a number that sounds clinical, almost small, until you divide it into thirst, hunger, exposure, and silence. Those who met him saw the evidence in his frame: severe weight loss, skin marked by sun and salt, muscles reduced to survival essentials. But the deeper transformation was less visible. He had lived inside a system where nothing responded to need, where effort did not guarantee outcome, where survival depended not on strength alone, but on repetition. One more decision, one more day, one more refusal to stop. People would later speak of endurance, of resilience, of human will. Words that sound large on land. Out there, survival had been smaller. Practical, immediate, drink when possible, conserve when necessary, act without drama. The war still raged, ships still crossed hostile waters, submarines still hunted. His survival did not stop the system that had nearly erased him. History continued with its momentum, but his story began moving in a different direction. Sailors, survival experts, and military planners studied what he had done, not as legend but as case study. How he rationed, how he adapted, how he turned environment into resource. His experience became evidence of a boundary pushed farther than expected, yet the true meaning of his ordeal lies somewhere quieter. The ocean is vast, indifferent, governed by forces beyond human appeal. It does not recognize courage, it does not reward effort, and still, a single person endured within it longer than logic would predict, not because the sea relented, but because he did not. Some battles leave wreckage, some leave graves, and some leave a story. Proof that survival is not one act of strength, but thousands of small refusals to surrender.